TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Well, we were finishing up a program, like I said earlier, with Ole and Gene. Guido wanted to go home at the time, and George Scott called me in the office and threw out a couple ideas, and one of them was that he wanted me to think about wrestling under a hood, which I had never done, but, which was nothing new for me because I hadn't done anything the things I've done before anyway.
Right.
And they always had some success here in this Mid-Atlantic region with a mascot.
Right.
So the premise was that I was working with Wahoo at the time, worked some single matches around the whole territory, and we were going to have a loser-leave town match in Greensboro in the Coliseum. And not only was it a loser-leave town match, it was a hair match.
Okay.
So if I lost my hair and left town. Wahoo lost, of course, he did the same thing. And although I had a ponytail and shaved head, Wahoo didn't have much more hair than I did either.
Right.
But long story short, this transpired over a period of about 6 to 8 weeks. In the meantime, every Monday, as I was working around the territory as the Mongol, every Monday, Malenko and I would go down to Park Center here in Charlotte, because the gym they had to set up because they had wrestling every Monday, and we'd go in there in the afternoon, and he'd take me from the Mongol character to a wrestling heel with things that I had known for some time, because when I broke in with Guido, we did all that stuff.
Right.
Although the character, we didn't do it. He knew how to wrestle and counters and all this stuff. So it was just like a refresher course. And up till that time, we had never done any interviews because we weren't supposed to be able to talk. We were supposed to be from Mongolia. So I had no fear of talking because I had those years of speaking and teaching in the background. So I went from losing my hair and losing the match and Sunday evening in Greensboro Coliseum to showing up in Greenville, North Carolina, or South Carolina, the next night as the Masked Superstar.
Right.
In that period, not only did I train the moves and counter moves and bought a new wardrobe, I had also bought a new automobile.
Oh, really?
So I used to drive a Ford Galaxy LTD all around.
Right.
And then I just purchased a new van about 2 or 3 months before that. So I show up the next day, new man, new face,
so
new car.
Nobody knew.
Speaking.
Fans had no idea?
A lot of the fans, there was a fan here today that said he didn't know that I was the same guy for about 8 or 9 years. And he also didn't know that I was another character after the Superstar.
Right.
Until somebody told him. He didn't believe it.
Wow.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's real good. So started off in Crockett, well, continued in Crockett, but under the, how'd you like wearing the mask and everything?
I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it because, you know, anybody that knows anybody here, Wahoo and Flair and Valentine and Mulligan and all these guys, we'd have these tremendous contests. And in this area, the Mid-Atlantic region, wrestling was probably the hottest of ever. And these guys, after the match, you know, you don't mind people coming up to you and booing you or cheering you and patting you on the back. But when you go to Six Flags or you go to a nice meal with your wife and children, you know, some of these guys, literally, they'd be in the same hotel that I was in, and they'd be barraged with fans. Some of them were good, some of them were great, but most of them weren't, and they couldn't get through a meal.
Right.
And here I am, 5 tables away from them,
Just
and
enjoying
they don't
yourself.
even know who I am.
Right.
So I really enjoyed it, and I did a special effort. George Scott had asked me to be very conscious of the fact to protect the mask. So I stayed at different hotels when I was on the road. I tried to stay away from the wrestlers as much as possible. And sometimes fans would try to follow me. I would leave my mask on for hundreds of miles.
Right, in the car and everything.
And protect it.
Right.
And one thing, you know, it was an effort sometimes, but even today, some 30 years later, people remember that.
Right.
And they didn't really want to see who I was. They wanted to see if they could see who
Right. So, did they bring in at that time maybe Boris Malenko? Was he brought
He was
in?
already here.
He was already, but they brought him as your manager.
He was my manager. He was already here wrestling in the middle of the card,
Mm-hmm.
and they teamed us up. Yeah,
Was he very helpful?
very helpful.
Very helpful.
Good ring psychology. And the thing that I've mentioned many times, if you remember the interviews at that time, Flair was here, Wahoo was here, Mulligan was here, all good guys.
Mm-hmm.
And Boris said, if you're going to stand out, not only because of the mask, he said, you got to change your interview.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into a territory and everybody's yelling, you talk. If you go into a territory and everybody's talking, you yell.
Right.
To be different. And one thing that I learned from him also was protect the mask and never say anything that you can't back up.
Mm-hmm.
Be very mindful of what you say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you promise somebody you're going to go, like I mentioned another time, if I say I'm going to go in the ring and I'm going to break that guy's leg, I better break his leg.
Right.
What I should say is, I'm going to try to hurt him.
Right.
Now, there's long perimeters on hurting, but everybody's going to see if I'm going to break his leg.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful.
Speaking of breaking your leg, I guess you broke your ankle.
I broke my ankle.
And something about George Scott, he made you cut off the cast.
That's right. It's funny now, but it wasn't funny then.
Okay.
I was working with Igor. We had just done the angle with Igor, where I burned him with a cigar.
Okay.
On our first trip around the area, I mean, every place was sold out. I mean, it was fantastic.
What was the territory? Was it Greensboro, Charlotte,
Oh, it was
Virginia?
as far as Savannah, all the way up to Richmond, over to Tennessee. I mean, just encompassed the whole
Right.
area. North, just at the border of Georgia.
So business was good.
Oh, it was better than good.
Right.
They had called me to go into Japan at that time, and I had to cancel.
Because it was that good.
And they thought I was lying. So what I told them was that I took actually 8 or 10 weeks of checks.
Mm-hmm.
And I says, guys, I'm losing 50% by coming, but I gave you my word. I said I would come, and here's what I was making. And I don't mind that I'm losing money, but you were kind enough to push it off.
Mm-hmm.
And they really liked that, because how many times the guys go, oh, I'm making this and I'm making that. So I said, here's what I'm making.
Right.
But getting back to the thing that happened in Savannah,
Mm-hmm.
we drove down. So the first move of the match, I'm trying to evade Igor. He comes after me, and I dive out of the ring. But I go normally second rope and a top rope.
Mm-hmm.
For this reason, somehow I went middle rope and bottom.
Bottom rope.
When I did, the middle rope hit my ankle,
Mm-hmm.
and ricocheted my ankle down, and I hit the edge of the apron. Broke the bone right off.
Ah.
Broke it off. And I knew right immediately
Right there.
something was wrong.
Right.
And I wrestled. I think we probably went a half hour.
Oof.
Went back in. I didn't even take my damn boot off because I knew something was happening. Stuck my boot and my outfit and everything in a big garbage can full of ice.
Mm-hmm.
Drove from Charleston, South Carolina to Charlotte, 5-6 hours. Well, halfway up, the guys were driving. I think Boris or somebody. We used to go in 2s and 3s. So by the time I get out of the van in Charlotte, I could do jumping jacks, run a mile. It wouldn't bother me because it was frozen.
Right. Kept the ice on the whole time.
Took the boot off, went to bed. About 2 or 3 hours later, I thought my wife was hitting me with a sledgehammer.
Oh.
I said, my God. And I looked down and my ankle was swollen.
Right.
She said, what happened? I said, I think I broke my ankle last night. So we went to the emergency room, took x-rays and this, and they said, well, there's nothing major. It's a little bone. Anybody that knows, it's the outside bone on your ankle, just the top of it where the triangle, and it severed it off. It was wedged inside the ligaments and muscles.
Ah.
So what he did is he went in there and manipulated it. As soon as he popped it back out of all that muscle and stuff,
Right.
put it back on, I had no pain.
Right.
So he put a cast on. He says, you're going to be in a cast for about a month. So at that time, we had to go to the office all the time.
Uh-huh.
So I go in, I'm on crutches in the cast. George says, what the hell happened to you? I said, I broke my ankle. You can't have a broken ankle. I said, I got a broken ankle.
Can't have a broken.
He went and cut the damn thing off, and I got a walking cast, but there was no pain, see?
Right.
I mean, I could do jumping jacks, so I had the plastic walk. He gave me 2 days off. He says, be at TV on Wednesday. And then we did the angle. But it worked out such a way that I could manipulate and maneuver so
Right.
well. People thought I was just afraid of Igor.
Right.
So it was a little ding up there by God that said, this is how we're going to work this thing.
Right.
TitleMatchNetwork.com